pleasure it is to be here in Shelby County. The presentation I'm going to give tonight is called Red Alert Texas. And the reason why I give a presentation called Red Alert is because that's the attitude we all need to have. Now, I will confess a little something here. That's actually the attitude we all needed to have a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's actually the attitude we all needed to have about 5 years ago. Right? A wise man once told me there are only two ways to run in politics: unopposed and scared. And the Democrats have learned the lesson. We are not unopposed. The filing window to file candidates for the 2020 election closes 3 weeks from yesterday. 100% of the races that we do not have a candidate in by 3 weeks from yesterday, 3 weeks from today, we will know. There will be a slew of races that we are guaranteed to lose in November 2020 because no one files in them by 3 weeks from yesterday. That's why this is called Red Alert Texas. But the first thing I like to talk about in the presentation is how have we been doing at the party? Well, one of the biggest things about being chairman of the party is part of the job is to raise funds. And we'll talk about this more. Money is necessary in politics. It's never sufficient, but it is necessary. So how have we been doing? Well, what this tells you, we've got all our audited financials up on our website. I'm a big fan of transparency. So we actually put the audits for the last 10 years all up on our website on a page, texasgop.org/audits. And if you look at the last 10 years of our performance in election cycles, right? Every other year we got an election, so we have an off year, election year, off year, election year. Okay, if you look at it in 2 year cycles, I was elected in June of 2017. So if we go from January 1, 2017 to December 31st of 2018, how we do? We raised almost $13.8 million total. And if you look at that, that is more than 25% more than any other 2 year cycle we have on history.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you. There are two pieces of that I'm even more proud of. Not only did we raise millions more than we ever had before, but we devoted a bigger percentage of all the money we raised to political activity than ever before. Over half of this $13.8 million went straight to political activity. I'm talking paid staff in the field, door knocking, mailers, phone calls, texts, not rent and accounting and compliance and overhead. And that meant that because we had raised a lot more and we had devoted a bigger percentage, we've spent more than double on politics than we had ever spent before in the party's history. And not only that, but we're conservative, right? And we're supposed to live by our own principles. That is why I was really excited. A week and a half ago, we announced the 9-year anniversary of the party paying off its last loan it's ever had.
Wow, that's awesome.
But here's where it gets even more fun, right? So you pay off the loan, that's great, but you have to have money to operate with. This is our cash balance at the end of the cycle, and it had never even reached $1 million before, and at the end of last year, it was $1.5 million, 50% higher than it had ever been before. And here's the great news. We haven't put out the email about this yet, but last week, that total is now over $3 million. So we've been doing a good job. We've been responsible. We've been raising money. We've been managing it well. We've been devoting it to the right things. What do we get for all of that? Well, the big thing we got is we won every single statewide elected office in Texas for the 12th election in a row. And this is the part when I visit counties like yours, where I say, thank you. Because if it were not for East Texas and West Texas, if it were not for rural Texas, that would not be a true statement. Y'all saved Senator Cruz's bacon. You did, and I'll get to why more in a minute, but I never want to pass that by. Thank you. It mattered. And it matters now, and it still matters. And we'll talk a lot more about what we have to do and why we have to do it. But with those wins, that's great. We are the only state in the country where Republicans dominate Democrats that way. But there were a bunch of losses. So first, we lost 2 Texas Senate seats, 1 each in Dallas and Fort Worth. And what was really bad about that is even though we had a historical win, we had our first ever Hispanic Texas Republican state senator elected in Senate District 19, a district we won for the first time in 139 years, a district that was 77% Hispanic. Even though we did that, we only had 19 senators. And during a regular session, who knows how many votes it takes to get a bill passed? 19. Used to be 21. Now the rule is 19. It takes 19. We had exactly 19 because we lost those 2. That made it very awkward. We lost 2 Senate seats. We lost 12 Texas House seats, and that's not good, right? That dropped us down to 83. I get reporters ask me about stuff like that all the time. So you're really scared because you have 83? Well, I'm annoyed we only have 83. And I'll get to more of that in a minute. But no, I'm not scared. 10 years ago, in 2009, our margin was 1. 76-74. 10 years ago. I'm a little older than that, so I've got a little more perspective. 16 years ago was the first time Republicans ever won the Texas House.
Wow.
Ever. So no, Mr. Reporter, I'm not scared that we only have an 8-seat majority in the House. But I'm not happy about it. We need better. And we will get better, and I'll talk about that in a second. But here's one that was really devastating. We lost 31 out of 32 Court of Appeals. And that was a majority on 5 different courts. That's brutal. I'll talk more about why and what we'll do about that in a minute. But then the last one, we lost 2 congressional seats, and this was the big eye-opener. So we lost 2 congressional seats. We would have, could have, should have lost those 2 races in 2016. In 2016, Hillary Clinton got way more votes in both those districts than Donald Trump did in both those districts. Anybody have a guess as to why Democrats did not win those 2 races in 2016? They didn't have a candidate in either of those races in 2016. So, once we all saw the 2016 election results, everybody went, uh-oh. They went, uh-oh, we missed out, and we went, uh-oh, they're coming for them. And each of those 2 congressional races ended up costing $27 million each. But of course, the biggest warning and the biggest race of all was the U.S. Senate race. Senator Cruz versus Robert Francis O'Rourke, who thankfully is showing his true colors now. So we all know Senator Cruz won by far too little. He won by 2.6%. What most of us forget too easily is that just 4 years earlier, Senator Cornyn won by 10 times as much, by 27%. Now, a bunch of things went into it, and this race serves as a good reminder for several things and some useful insight here. First thing is, thank God, in the United States of America and in Texas, you cannot buy an election. Because Senator Cruz raised what would have been a national record. He raised $38.9 million. No U.S. Senate candidate had ever raised that much. And O'Rourke raised twice as much, $80.3 million. He had an extra $40 million sitting around, still couldn't win the race. Well, what did he do with it? And this is where it really gets insightful. His mission was not to convert Republicans. Even though the press gave him a free pass, he wasn't out there talking about how he was going to barge in and steal all our guns, and he wasn't talking about how he was going to take over churches and have them lose their freedom, religious freedom, and freedom of speech. He wasn't doing any of that, but his strategy still was not to persuade Republicans that he wasn't a crazy gun grabber. His strategy was to add 1 million Democrats. Well, he did. They added not just 1 million Democrats, they added 1.2 million Democrats. They added 200,000 more Democrats than they even thought possible. And he still lost by 220,000 votes, and the only reason he did is because he did a heck of a job increasing turnout. But when they set out to add 1 million votes, and they had the money, what they did is they did the most valuable thing you can possibly do. There is a lot of research that proves that the number one way to get a voter to turn out is to show up at their door and ask them to turn out. It is the most effective thing. And it takes people. So 2 months before the election, we at the Republican Party of Texas, we had 8 paid field staff. Senator Cruz had 18 paid field staff. O'Rourke also had 18 paid field staff. Governor Abbott had 100 paid field staff all around the state. It's rare. In that last month, when timing is so critical and we can turn people out, right? We got 2.5 weeks of early voting, and so we got about a 5-week window. We can ask somebody, please go turn out. In that last 5 weeks, we at the party, we didn't have the money, we didn't have the plan, so we stayed at 8. Senator Cruz stayed at 18. Governor Abbott, God bless him, he went from 100 to 140. And not only did he do that, but those extra 40, they all went in the areas where they knew we had the biggest challenges. Governor Abbott did not work to run up his numbers, he worked to try to save House members. It was, as a party guy, it was pretty reassuring to see and encouraging to see. So he did that, 100 to 140. O'Rourke went from 18 to 821. Now, if you think about it, if you've ever hired staff, or if you've ever been hired, it generally isn't an easy, fast process. And certainly if you started with 18 people, how in the world do you get 800 in less than a month? Well, it's become obvious what they had to have done. What they had done is they had thousands of volunteers who had already been trained and already been using their system, had already been doing the work, and they had already been measuring the performance of those volunteers, and they knew which ones were great, and they knew which ones were in the areas they needed, and they went to them and said, if we pay you, will you come work for us full-time next month? Can you get a sitter for the kids? Can you arrange to travel into this town where we need you? Can you come out of retirement for a couple of weeks? Can you take a couple of weeks off work? They got 800 people to say, okay. And that's how they turned out 1.2 million extra people. The good news is, that's a formula, and that's hard work. And I would rather pit the ability of Republicans to do hard work over Democrats doing hard work any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So in the congressional race, I told you we already have those 2 that we lost. Good news is we've got great new candidates already stepping up in both these. I am convinced that we can win at least one of these back, maybe both. But we have 6 other races where our margin of victory was only 3% or less. And so that's a big challenge, right? 3% or less, that's far too close. More frighteningly, 3 of those 6 races go right towards Austin. And so the Democrat National Congressional Committee has already announced that those 6 races are their top offensive targets countrywide, and they've already opened an office in Austin to fight for those 3. So they are coming. They want at these. Now, here's the part where somebody asked me, in fact, I got asked by a TV reporter today, what about this Texodus? Okay, which is a pithy name for a handful of Texas Republicans and congressmen announcing that they're not going to run for re-election. And there are 6 of them. There are 6 congressmen this time that have announced that they are not running for re-election. We have 23 congressmen in Texas, so it's about a quarter of the delegation. Anybody know how many announced last time that they were not going to run for re-election? 6. So every time a reporter goes, oh my gosh, there are all these congressmen, I'm like, that's funny, I've been in the job 3 years, this feels like the normal pace. 6 is normal, but here's where it gets fun. Of those 6 last time that announced they weren't running for re-election, how many of those 6 spots did we not win again? 0. We won them all. Right? So somebody stepping down doesn't necessarily mean we lose the spot. In fact, quite possibly the opposite, because this time 3 of the 6 members who announced they're not running again are 3 of those 6 who had less than a 3% margin. So we've got a chance to get some new energy, new blood, new candidate, new chance. Now, that's not an incumbent, and generally speaking, incumbents have an advantage. The biggest advantages incumbents tend to have is name recognition and the ability to raise money. No question. But in these races, that wasn't paying off that much for these incumbents, or at least, hopefully it wasn't. And so I'm excited about the chance to do it. The big thing I asked all those congressmen was, this time, if you're not going to run for re-election, please announce early so our new candidates can get a running start for the next election. And thankfully, all of them did. They announced that they weren't running for re-election months in advance, so we had new candidates have a chance to get a running start. Where last time, they almost all announced right before the flag. So that was really positive. Now, the Texas House losses. Not happy about this, right? We lost 12 races. Couple of things. This time around, we already have some great candidates stepping up in these races, and I'm optimistic that we will win some of those back. We will. But we also had a couple of races on here where we lost them and we didn't have to lose them. So we had one race where the candidate lost by less than 3%, and on election night they had $130,000 in the bank. Because they didn't think they needed to spend that to win. We had another candidate who was so sure that there's no way that enough voters would vote for his crazy and extremist opponent that he was out block walking for other candidates the last 3 weeks of the election. Now, I appreciate his selflessness. I do not appreciate losing the seat. The good news is this time, no one is taking anything for granted. Remember what I said? 2 ways to run: unopposed or scared. And the good news is this time, everybody's taking seriously the need to defend Texas and the need to run all the way through the tape and take every race and every vote seriously. So we're going to win some of those 12 seats back. But if we do not, if we didn't win any of those 12 seats back, it only takes 9 more to flip the Texas House. And that matters for a ton of reasons. The big 3 reasons are: 1, if we do not have a majority in the House, we're not setting the legislative agenda for the House. That's a problem. 2nd, if we do not have a majority in the House, we are not electing the Speaker of the House. That's a problem. And coming with that comes the appointment of committee chairs and a whole bunch of other stuff. But the big one this time is, if we do not have a majority in the House, we are not controlling redistricting, which affects the next decade. So it is absolutely crucial that we do not, that we win back some of those 12 and that we do not lose these 9. We have 9 races where our margin was 5% or less. And 7 of those 9 races are in DFW alone. Which is exactly why, we figured all this out in December. By January, we had our first field staff in DFW working those districts. And we've been working at a bigger pace than ever before. And of those, actually, only 2 of them have announced they're not running again. So, and I'm cautiously optimistic we'll get some good candidates in those. So what is driving all this? Well, it's not just population growth in Texas. So between 2008 and 2012, population grew in Texas, but registered voters didn't. Registered voters stayed flat between 13 and 13.5 million votes. Since 2012, when the Democrats announced a major initiative supported by Eric Holder and a bunch of others to come into Texas and register Democrat voters, we have added 2.8 million more voters to the voting roll in Texas in a 6-year window. There are whole states that don't have 2.8 million registered voters. Since November 2018, just last November's election, we've already added another 870,000 registered voters. Now the difference is that from 2012 to 2018, the Democrats were being real intentional about it. Now we got some of those. Some of those 2.8 million increase, that's, you know, friends and neighbors and family who moved in and they're God-fearing Republicans and they're, you know, we got them on the team by, you know, organically, by sheer luck. The difference is, since January, we've been working on ways to do it intentionally, and there's a bunch of different initiatives going on today. The big three that I can mention. One is called Engage Texas. That's a federal super PAC, so by law, we're not allowed to coordinate with them. What I know just from public statements about them, they've raised something like $15 million. Their goal is to register something like 400,000 new Republicans, and my understanding is they're doing just fine towards that goal. There's another initiative, also a federal super PAC, called Jonathan Project. They are working, and there's similar, differently named organizations, working on getting evangelical Christians, pastors, and churches to increase the percentage of registered voters they have and the percentage of turnout they have from their churches. So those initiatives are going on. Because in the average American church, half of the attendees are not registered, and half of those who are don't vote. So there's a lot of work going on. The big initiative in the party is to use voter registration as a way to recruit, train, activate, and empower volunteers between now and the end of the primary. Because in the party, at least at the RPT, we're not allowed to take sides during the primary, right? So we got to be fair. It's my job to actually manage the primary and make sure that election goes well. It's an election. I'm responsible for the election, so I can't take sides in the election. That'd be weird. And problematic, right? So instead, we can recruit, train, equip, and empower volunteers. And so we have an initiative going. It's called 10K for 10R. Now, this does not mean you have to run a 10K, because I could, right? This means 10,000 volunteers who are each willing to help us register 10 voters. And we've set this up as easily as humanly possible. If you agree to volunteer as part of the 10K for 10R program, one of our staffers will send you the names and phone numbers of 10 people that we are 99% sure are hardcore Republicans, and we're about 95% sure they're not registered to vote in Texas. And all we ask is that you call them and ask if we can mail them a voter registration form. That's it. And then tell us back if we do. So let me ask you, how many of you are willing to defend Texas? How many of you are willing to defend Texas enough that you're willing to make 10 phone calls? Okay, Dalton's got cards, he's going to bring them around. When he comes to your table, let him know that you want one of these cards. We will pick these up tonight, and we will get you in the army of volunteers that is helping make sure that we defend Texas. You know, not only have there been 2.8 million new registered voters and another 870,000 just this year, but it's all been concentrated, not surprisingly, where the population growths are the highest, and that's in the major metro areas. And in fact, if you look at DFW, Greater Houston, Greater Austin, Greater San Antonio, you put those together, 66% of all the growth in voters happens in just those four major metro areas. So how have we as Republicans been doing in those four major metros? And the answer is way better than you think. So the Reds, these are just in order. DFW, Greater Houston, Greater Austin, Greater San Antonio. Sorry, every time I get out of the sweet spot, I get feedback. So Reds DFW, Purple's Greater Houston, the Blues Greater Austin, the Greens Greater San Antonio. And you can see every major metro area except Greater Austin, we actually won all during the Obama administration. 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014. Remember I said Senator Cornyn won by 27 points in 2014. Not only that, but those Court of Appeals, remember I said we just lost 31 out of 32 Court of Appeals seats this election? Court of Appeals seats are 6-year terms. We won all those seats because 6 years earlier in 2012, we were killing it in the major metro areas. We won every major metro except Greater Austin, and even Greater Austin, we only lost it by so little that the rural counties around Austin could make up for it. So this was an awesome trend all through the Obama administration until it wasn't. 2016, we kind of went flat in the major metros. In 2018, we lost Greater Austin alone by 250,000 votes. And there were no set of rural counties that could make that up, which is why we lost those Court of Appeals. So here's the question. We had a great trend going until we didn't. Are the Democrats looking at a trend that's in their favor that goes on for a while? Or is this a dip? And as the head of the party that believes in personal responsibility, and the party that believes in hard work, and the results you can get if you will stick to it and do the right stuff, I am here to tell you that I am convinced that if we do the work we better do, we can make sure that's a dip. So what do we do? How do we do it? Well, we've already begun. First, hire, train, and deploy staff. We already have double the staff we ever had at our peak last time. And we are on our way to a plan. Here's the plan. President Trump, Senator Cornyn, they both already agreed. The minute the primary is over, we get all of their staff. We are already raising money. The reason why we have $3 million in the bank is not because I like seeing big bank balances, because we need that money to be ready for the field stuff we need to deploy next year. We are going to have 150 paid field staff out by next June. And they're going to be working those major metro areas. And don't worry, I mean, we won't ignore other parts of the state. But there's a reason we have to take the battle where the enemy is, right? And we're going to. We've also been recruiting and training candidates and volunteers, as I told you earlier. We got 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today, there will be a bunch of races and we will already know we lost. And so we have spent months doing candidate recruiting and training. We organized back in January, we organized a candidate recruiting task force and got a statewide group of volunteers who got to work on trying to reach out to get candidates in the hardest races. We ended up partnering up with Leadership Institute, which is a nationally recognized conservative training organization, and they put on one-day intensive candidate and campaign training events. And we put those on, 33 of them around the state. And we had over 1,400 people pay to attend the classes to make sure they were prepared to be good candidates campaigning. We partnered up with Supreme Court Justice Jeff Boyd to do a special set of initiatives just to recruit judicial candidates in our hardest areas. And as a result, we actually got judicial candidates to step up for the first time in El Paso. And we got them to step up in new races that we have not been in before in the Valley and in San Antonio. Awesome. And in Dallas. Yes. We have got to take the battle to the enemies, and we have been. I need your help, though. If there is any race, talk to your county chairs, talk to friends, talk to neighbors, talk to family around Texas. If there is any race that we do not have somebody in, we need to make sure we get somebody into that race. Sooner the better. And volunteers. We already have. You guys have the 10K for 10R forms. Thank you. God bless you. By the end of this week, we've been doing this for about 5 weeks now, 6 weeks now, I guess, time flies. 6 weeks now, and we are nearing in on 2,000 volunteers towards our 10,000 goal. So we are going to build the Army. I talked to Ernie Angelo, which most people won't know him, and he'd be happy with it. He has no problem with that. But he was a legendary guy. He was our national committee man for 20 years. He was the campaign manager for Reagan in Texas in 1976 and 1980. And God bless him, he's a healthy, hardworking guy. And I met with him the other day. He said after the 1980 campaign, he had to send thank you notes to 22,000 volunteers. And here's the deal. We haven't worked that hard in Texas in far too long.
That's right.
And we need to grow the party, right? All estimates are that our next election is going to have, for the first time ever in Texas, 11 million voters. To give you a feel for how much it's grown, Governor Abbott only missed in a gubernatorial year, right? There's always more turnout in a presidential year than there's a gubernatorial year. In a gubernatorial year, Governor Abbott only missed getting the same number of votes as President Trump by a few thousand. That's how massive the turnout was in our last election. So we're going to have 11 million votes. Well, guess what? We need more than half. We need over 5.5 million votes, and we've never gotten more than 4.8. So we got to add hundreds of thousands of votes. We got to grow the party. And the easiest way to do it is this. Recruiting staff, recruiting volunteers, recruiting candidates, having those candidates recruit their volunteers. And running in races and in neighborhoods and in cities and in towns where we've kind of taken things for granted, or we've ceded it to the enemy and we can't do it. And voter registration. We have let them be the only ones playing on the voter registration field for far too long, and that is over. We started earlier this year, and we will never let them have that alone again. We've been doing non-stop fundraising. Like I said, it's not sufficient. It won't win a race by itself, but it is necessary, and we're going to make sure we have the resources necessary for our candidates to win. I'm really proud about our field staff. So we've got a lot further to go with field staff in terms of quantity. We're going to be building up like crazy, but already we have an amazing field staff that are all under 30 years of age. A majority is female or minority or both. A full third are bilingual. And we even have one dude who's trilingual, so we can talk to the Cajun refugees from Louisiana. and we could play, hey, I was here when the hurricane came, right? I mean, we have. And we have deployed that staff exactly where we need it. In the major metro areas, but where we are also putting them is in the Valley and El Paso, because those are the next fastest growing areas of Texas.
Yes.
We are not ceding any territory. We're upgrading all of the stuff. How many people here have ever block walked? Okay. Yeah, I know you have. Okay. So, as I said, block walking is the most effective thing you can do. Now, there are rural areas where it makes no sense to block walk, because you're not block walking, you're block driving, right? And you can't just, you're gate driving or gator, you can just, so, it's not always appropriate for everywhere, but when and if you can do it, it is the most effective thing you can do. But even though it's amazingly effective, the most common result when you block walk is no answer. Right? And I on purpose say no answer, not at home, because I've had plenty of times where I saw it on the face.
And they run high.
No answer. But our block walking software folks, the Advantage block walking software, they've updated their software, so if you pick no answer, and the campaign set it up this way, you pick no answer, you get an option to send a text. And the campaign can have saved a text message that automatically goes to that voter that says, hey, I'm James and I'm a volunteer and I do with the Bob Smith campaign, and I just came by and I'm sorry I missed you, I left some stuff at your door. Hope to meet you sometime in the future. And I don't have to put any of that in, I just have to say send text. It's very, very cool. We also have phone banking software, really, really useful. We've got 254 counties. I've got about 252 county chairs right now. I've got dozens of other people, hundreds of donors call. I use our phone banking software to make it much easier to make those calls. It really is, it's been improved a lot. All of it's automatically integrated with our data. So every candidate from city council above, from the Republican Party of Texas, if they are a Republican candidate, they get the best free voter data there is. It's the same voter data the president uses. They get block walking software that's tied to that voter data. They got phone banking software that's tied to that voter data. And they get texting software that's tied to that voter data. And it's all free. All they have to pay for is the phone minutes and the text messages that they use. All the rest is already covered, already free, available to everybody. And the other thing that I really like, how many here are deputy voter registrars where you can register somebody on the spot? Great, you do, love it. But there are a lot of times like you don't have the cards with you, or they're from a county where you're not, or whatever. All you have to do is tell somebody to text TX vote 72,000, and we will take their info and we'll mail them the form. And we got cool little cards to help you remember that.
Awesome.
Yeah, yes. We got them up there. You don't need the card. The card's just to remind you. But that is a cool thing. And this is one of the things I love. We have now an event calendar map. It's on our homepage at texasgop.org. Any event open to the public and for Republicans can be submitted. So it says submit a new event right here. All you have to do, go to our webpage, submit an event. Any club meeting, this club meeting tonight was on there. Any club meeting, any executive committee meeting for your county party, any candidates kickoff event or fundraising event or block walking event or phone banking party or whatever, all of those events, we want them on here. And we want them on here for two reasons. One, we get calls every day at the party from somebody saying, I'm new to Texas, I want to get involved, how can I help? Or, I just woke up and I realized we're in trouble and I want to help. or some variation of that, right? We get those calls every day. And that we want the answer to be, just look for the event near you that you like and go for it, right? That's how you get connected. But the other thing is, I dream of the day when we have so many events on here that any Democrat who looks at this thing will just give up. Because it'll be full of Republican. So I'm going to end with this, and then we can do questions after. I'm going to end with this. How can you help? Well, you can sign up for 10K for 10 Art. You can make sure every Republican leading person you know is registered to vote. You can refer us excellent potential staff candidates and volunteers. We got less than 3 weeks for the candidates. We need candidates by the hundreds. We need staff by the hundreds. We need volunteers by the thousands. Refer those people to us. And then I'm the chair of the party. It is my job. Please donate. Please be a member of Grassroots Club. Grassroots Club can be found at grassrootsclub.com. That's a webpage at grassrootsclub.com. If you're ever wondering where it is, it's at grassrootsclub.com. I highly recommend it. Please donate. God bless you. God bless Texas.